Airport officer claimed she attacked him. Then 7 cameras exposed the truth. The tile floor of Ashford Metropolitan International Airport is cold against her cheek. A knee presses into her back and she can feel her own pulse in her ears. "I am not resisting," she says, slow and clear, the way she was trained to speak when panic wants to take over. Above her, a security camera dome tilts almost imperceptibly, its dark glass catching the fluorescent light. Nobody in the terminal moves for a moment. Then 3 phones rise at once, held sideways, red recording dots blinking. A rolling suitcase wheel spins lazily a few feet away, still turning from where she dropped it. Near a pillar 20 feet behind her, untouched by anyone, lies a slim leather wallet that started all of this. "Check the camera," she says again, her voice muffled against the floor. The officer does not check the camera. He never intends to. Her name is Danielle Okafor, 38 years old, wearing a faded olive jacket with a torn cuff and sneakers gone gray at the toes. Her suitcase has a wheel that sticks, and her backpack has a cracked laptop sleeve held together with tape. She is not famous, not wealthy, not anyone the cameras were built to protect. She is simply a woman on her way to a new civilian job at a state health department. 3 states from the only home she has ever known. Nobody watching her on the terminal floor yet knows why she remains so still, so calm, so unwilling to fight back even as her wrists are forced into handcuffs. They do not know why the officer refuses to look up at the very camera that is already recording every mistake he is making. They do not know how many other travelers have stood exactly where she is standing now, and how many complaints about this same officer were quietly closed before anyone read them twice. 3 hours earlier, Danielle had walked into Terminal C with a boarding pass in her cracked phone case and nothing on her mind but making her connection. The terminal moved the way terminals always move, departure boards flickering, a stroller wheel squeaking past a coffee kiosk, a cleaning cart humming along the tile. She had chosen a quiet stretch of seating near a marble pillar, close enough to hear her gate called, far enough from the crowd to breathe. A business traveler in a gray suit, a man named Martin Voss, had hurried past her only minutes before, reaching for his phone, not noticing the slim leather wallet that slipped from his coat pocket and landed near the base of the pillar. He did not look back. Danielle did not see it fall. She was reading a text message from her sister when a young officer named Cole Bratton rounded the corner and stopped, staring at her the way a man stares when he has already decided something before he has asked a single question. Officer Bratton was 27, 3 years on the force, assigned to routine terminal patrol after a supervisor's note questioned his judgment during a prior incident. He wanted more than routine patrol. He wanted a case that would get him noticed, something dramatic enough to move him toward a detective's badge. When he saw the wallet on the floor and a black woman sitting nearby in a faded jacket, he did not consider that hundreds of other people had walked past that pillar in the last 10 minutes. He walked directly to her. "That wallet belonged to you?" he asked, though he had not yet asked anyone whether a wallet was even missing. "No," Danielle said. "I didn't see it fall. You're welcome to check the cameras. I've been sitting right here." She said it plainly, without defensiveness, the way she had been trained to speak to any person holding authority over her. Bratton did not check the cameras. He asked for her bag instead, and she offered it without hesitation, unzipping it herself and stepping back so he could see clearly inside. There was no wallet, no cash, nothing that belonged to anyone but her. Instead of relief, Bratton's frustration deepened, as if the empty bag were proof of something clever rather than proof of nothing at all. "Ma'am, turn around," he said, his voice sharpening. "I'm not resisting," Danielle answered. "Please, just look up at the camera. The wallet's still right there by the pillar." "Am I free to go?" she asked, keeping her hands where he could see them. Bratton called the question noncompliance and grabbed her wrist before she could finish it. Her breathing settled into an old 4-count rhythm she had not needed in years. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, the kind of pattern that used to steady her hands before a difficult training exercise. She did not pull away, did not tense against his grip, only let him turn her arm the way he wanted. He forced her toward the pillar anyway, and when her balance shifted under his grip, he swept his leg against hers, and she went down onto the terminal floor in front of everyone. That is the moment the terminal camera captured from above, the moment 3 phones began recording, the moment a coffee kiosk worker named Emil Torres froze mid-pour with a cup tilted in his hand. An airport security employee named Priya Anand, 12 years into her job, watched from her podium near the checkpoint and felt something twist in her stomach. This was not how a theft complaint was supposed to unfold, not even close. There had been no interview with a complainant, no search of the surrounding floor, no request for footage, only an assumption. And now a woman face down on the tile with an officer's knee against her back. Priya did something small but important. She noted the exact time on her radio log and quietly began securing the footage before anyone could claim it had glitched or gone missing. A retired police officer named Walter Ng, waiting for his own flight nearby, stepped forward and said, "Officer, she's not fighting you, ease up." Bratton ignored him. A young mother named Sasha Reyes pulled her toddler back against her hip, unsure whether to record or look away, her hands shaking as she finally raised her phone. Not everyone moved to help. A man near the gate muttered that Danielle must have done something, and a few travelers simply stepped around the scene as though it were spilled coffee rather than a woman in handcuffs. Danielle lay still, cheek against the floor, and repeated the only thing she had left to offer. "I am not resisting. Please check the camera." Bratton hauled her upright and pushed her against the pillar, and for a moment it seemed the worst had already happened, until he reached for his baton. She did not think of herself as dangerous. She thought only of the exits, the crowd, and the arc of the baton rising toward her. When it came down, she turned her cuffed arm into it on instinct, more flinch than technique, catching his wrist enough to spoil the angle of the strike. Off balance and moving too fast to stop, Bratton lost his footing on the polished floor and went down on his own, the baton skittering out of his hand. Danielle stepped back immediately, hands raised, palms open, cuffs still locked around one wrist, not moving toward him again. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "Call your supervisor." Bratton, embarrassed and on the ground in front of a terminal full of witnesses, keyed his radio and reported that the suspect had attacked him without warning, that she had tried to take his weapon, that he needed immediate backup. Within minutes, 3 more officers arrived, weapons still holstered but voices raised, and Danielle stood perfectly still, hands visible, repeating calmly that she had only defended herself from a strike that was already in motion. Minutes earlier, Priya had flagged the incident through the airport's internal integrity channel, the same system built for exactly this kind of red flag, excessive force against a traveler who was not resisting. That alert reached Captain Renata Ford of Internal Oversight, who was 2 terminals away conducting an unrelated compliance check, and arrived within 6 minutes of the notification. Priya stepped forward with her tablet and showed Captain Ford the exact camera angle from directly above the pillar. Captain Ford watched 30 seconds of footage and asked a question nobody wanted to answer. Where is the wallet this arrest was supposed to be about? Nobody had moved it. It was still lying by the pillar, exactly where Martin Voss had dropped it 3 hours earlier, visible in 4 separate camera angles the entire time. The investigation that followed did not move quickly, and it did not move cleanly. The airport's first public statement echoed Bratton's radio report, almost word for word, describing an officer who had been physically assaulted while attempting a lawful detention. A union representative appeared at a press conference within a day, calling the incident under review and asking the public to withhold judgment until all the facts were known, even as those facts already sat on a secured hard drive in Priya Anand's office. Sergeant Holt Myers, Bratton's direct supervisor, initially suggested the baton strike could be classified as accidental, a detail that would later cost him his own position. Once investigators learned he had signed off on 2 prior complaints against Bratton without reviewing any footage at all. Passenger videos began circulating online within hours. Some were cut into short clips that showed only Danielle's defensive movement, stripped of everything that came before it. Investigators from the Civilian Oversight Board moved carefully around the noise. They requested original files rather than edited clips, verified the metadata, and synchronized 7 separate camera angles frame by frame, alongside Bratton's own body-worn camera. Each angle told the same story from a different position. One showed Martin Voss's wallet falling from his pocket, untouched by Danielle from that moment from it forward. One showed Bratton grabbing her arm before she made any threatening motion. One showed the leg sweep. One showed the baton rising. One showed her brief, controlled response, and nothing after it. The body cam audio captured her voice at least 6 times asking him to check the footage, each request ignored. While reviewing personnel files, Captain Ford found something that reframed the entire case. 14 months earlier, a college student named Jordan Ellis had been detained near the same terminal, accused of stealing wireless headphones from a retail kiosk. Ellis had missed his flight, spent a night in a holding cell, and lost a part-time airport job over an accusation that camera footage, never reviewed at the time, would have cleared in minutes. His complaint had been closed within a week, marked unsubstantiated, filed by an out-of-state student who never returned to pursue it further. Ford reopened it. As the pattern widened, investigators found 4 additional complaints over 3 years involving Black or immigrant travelers pulled from routine areas of the airport on the basis of an officer's intuition rather than any actual evidence. 3 of the 4 complaints named Bratton directly. The 4th involved a different officer trained under Sergeant Myers during the same period, and it used language almost identical to Bratton's own reports. The same phrase about suspicious hesitation, the same claim that a camera review would not have changed the outcome. That overlap told investigators the problem was no longer one officer's judgment. It was a shared habit, passed down and left unchecked. A federal security liaison named Alonzo Reeve, coordinating with the investigation, ran a routine background verification on Danielle as part of the broader review and found something unexpected in her personnel history. Years earlier, she had served as an Army instructor in defensive restraint techniques, training soldiers on how to control an escalating threat without causing serious injury. It explained her breathing, her stillness, her refusal to strike back harder than necessary. It did not, and was never treated as though it should, change whether the arrest itself had been lawful. That question had already been answered by 7 cameras, and a wallet nobody had bothered to pick up. Officer Bratton was placed on administrative leave pending a formal disciplinary hearing where he was represented by union counsel and given the chance to respond to the footage before any final decision was made. The hearing board reviewed the internal affairs report, which cited excessive force, filing a false report, and failure to follow basic verification procedure despite repeated opportunity to do so, and voted to terminate him. His state law enforcement certification was separately referred for review, a process that would take months and could end his career in policing altogether regardless of any court outcome. He was later charged with filing a false police report and third-degree assault. Charges only, not yet a conviction, with the final outcome left for a courtroom and a jury to decide. Sergeant Myers resigned before the disciplinary board could formally act on his case. His failure to review prior complaints was cited as a direct contributor to the pattern investigators uncovered. Every complaint he had personally closed without reviewing available footage was then reopened for an independent audit. The airport authority entered an independent monitoring agreement, agreeing to public reporting on use of force incidents and complaint outcomes for the following 3 years. Danielle was offered interviews by 4 different news outlets and declined all of them. "I don't want this to be about me," she told Captain Ford during a final debrief. "I want it to be about the fact that the camera was right there the whole time, and nobody looked at it until I was already in handcuffs." She added one more thing before she left the building that day. "Most people standing where I was standing don't have defensive training. They just have their hands up and hope somebody believes them." New policy followed within 2 months. Camera review became mandatory before any theft-related arrest when footage was immediately accessible. Supervisor approval was required before force could be used against a compliant traveler. Any officer directly involved in an incident was barred from writing the first consolidated report. Every relevant camera angle would now be automatically preserved the moment a theft allegation was logged, with no officer able to delay or decline that preservation. No traveler could be detained for proximity to lost property alone until dispatch confirmed a complainant and a description of the missing item. Jordan Ellis's case was formally reopened, his record cleared, and a written apology sent to the address he had left behind 14 months earlier. Weeks later, in a different terminal of the same airport, a young officer stopped mid-sentence during a minor dispute over a missing duffel bag, walked to the nearest camera terminal, and pulled up the footage before saying another word. The bag's owner had simply misremembered which carousel it was on. Nobody was handcuffed that day. Danielle finally boarded a later flight out of Ashford, her wrist still sore where the cuffs had pressed too tight, a fading bruise along her shin from where she'd gone down near the pillar. Her old suitcase sat in the overhead bin, the sticking wheel finally still. Clouds passed slowly beneath the window as the plane climbed, and somewhere below, in a terminal she would probably never see again, a slim leather wallet had long since been returned to its owner. the first piece of evidence in the case, and the one whose story had never changed. This is a fictional story created for storytelling purposes.